Hello again. I'm Shawn Reynolds, and I'm a district psychologist with St. Albert Public Schools. I'm here today with Charlotte Kirchner. She's Division Coordinator Inclusive Education with St. Albert Public Schools. And we're going to talk some more about ways to manage isolation in this season. Hey, Charlotte.
Hey, Sean, it's so good to be here with you. I look forward to our conversation about ways to manage isolation through this season of COVID. And I wanted to start out with a question like, what are the biggest risks to mental health as we start to come out of the pandemic?
What we've seen as the pandemic has kind of come and gone and waxed and waned is that there's a lot of frustration for people as we are nearing the end. We can kind of see the finish line at this point, and there's this gap between I can see the end, but I'm not there yet. And so there's a lot of pandemic fatigue that's going on now, and a lot of anxiety around just as we get close and we get closer to getting a vaccination, then uh, for some people, that anxiety actually goes up as we get towards the end of it because it's like, well, I don't want to mess anything up now. And then for others, there's anxiety related to I just can't manage this kind of stress much more, so I'm letting down my guard and I'm gonna be doing things that I wasn't doing a few months ago. And so I we know that anxiety was a challenge for our students before the pandemic even began. I remember having conversations with folks in schools year and a half, 2 years ago about the epidemic of anxiety that we were seeing then. And then we have this pandemic that came on top of that. So we know that these challenges they haven't gone away. They're still there. And they've been, I think, made worse by just the stress that we've all been under over the last year. I like to say for our elementary school parents, it's like we've all been in the yellow zone. We all have the this just antsiness and this kind of general anxiety that's constant day after day around what are the numbers like, what's safe for my kids to do, what's safe for me to do, how about my parents, what's their safety like, am I going to lose my job, all of these things that are going on that I think really are having this impact on our anxiety. And it leaves us needing to do more but having less capacity to do those things as well. So we simultaneously have more stuff that's necessary and less ability to be able to do it. I think about for our teachers who are under a lot of stress right now, we've added onto their plate having to spend X minutes each day in doing things like cleaning and disinfecting. They have a different setup with how they get kids in the door and out the door. Not that these things are bad, but they take up time that they didn't have to spare previously. And so as a result, you wind up then missing out on other things that are important too. And I feel like there's just this sense of, for those of us that lean towards perfectionism, that we're not able to do the things that we want to do. This is the year that we just try to kind of get through as opposed to really thrive with. So, knowing as well that there's been this general sense of loss over the last year, and that can be in a really specific way, like an actual loss of a loved one, but for many of us, it's not that death that's been the loss, but it's been a loss of time related to COVID, or even if no one in your household has gotten COVID, it's been a loss of experiences, not being able to go on vacation or to take the breaks that we normally would do. And so all of these are things that impact our anxiety. And so as we think about coming out of the season, we want to make sure that we're able to manage that isolation in the right way, because that's something that we've all experienced over the last year, and that's been really tough.
When you're talking about loss, and so many people have lost a loved one, we can look to in the school system. Teachers are talking about kids and other teachers, fellow coaches who are actually really sad about track season coming up, and they don't like they're missing the track season. So we're losing those times together that were really valued and are really valued
For
in
sure.
the school with the kids, and a great time. So there's that kind of a loss too. People are grieving, not having what's normal, what creates their normal.
And all
So,
these things that we do, these things that we see as extracurriculars of being able to play at recess with kids in different classes, of being able to do track, to do these other things, getting together with people out after school. These are things that, can we live without them? Yeah, we can live without them, but it's harder to thrive. And I think we've just missed out on all those opportunities during this last year. And knowing that these are things that when people say that they're having a rough go of it, that their anxiety is higher, their mood is lower, there's really good reasons for that. That's really understandable.
mhm. Yeah. So with like considering all of those elements in through this pandemic, how can we prepare our students for the fall, for the summer first and fall?
Yeah, and we want to think about, we want to use some really fundamental strategies that will help us with managing isolation and managing our mental health during these times, because it's again, we're getting close to the end. So we want to think about ways for our kids that we're going to help to set them up for success moving into the next season and the next school year as well. A big one for me is just making sure that those lines of communication are open. That what we're seeing with a lot of people is not this huge immediate downturn with COVID in terms of their mental health, but just this gradual, slow roll downhill as that stress just kind of piles on. Just a pebble here, a brick there. We can manage it, but eventually we're just pooped. And making sure that our kids have ways of being able to communicate the stress that they're experiencing, because what we know is that when we're under a lot of stress, small things can be the straw that breaks the camel's back. And we want to make sure that our kids are able to get help when they need it and to reach out when they need it too. A lot of our kids are reluctant to want to seek that help from parents because they know that mom and dad are already stressed out and they don't want to add anything. So making sure that you build in times to facilitate that and make it easier. Some kids do well with that chat right across the table. For me, that can feel a little too much like a therapy session. And so going out for ice cream with your kids, going for a walk, taking a drive are ways to be able to try to keep those lines of communication open. A second has to do with that ability to see into the future and to see the good things that are coming up down the road. There's some research around one of the benefits of vacations is not just the time that you spend away, but it's the pre-vacation and the post-vacation. So when we get to plan for vacations, I can think about the fun stuff that's going to happen, just like I can have memories of the things that I had done before. And so while we're in this spot where many of us have simply not had any vacation or any of those unique fun experiences over the last while, we know that those are coming. We're going to get there. And so being able to plan those with your kids is a nice way to have something to look forward to in the future. We all need goals and we all need things to do, partially to be effective, but also partially just things to look forward to that are going to be fun. I bumped into someone that I play basketball with. I strangely got into a group of got with a group of guys that play basketball, and they're all about 20 years younger than I am. And I just saw one of them randomly as I was walking around earlier this week, and we were talking about getting it started again. And I figured they would be doing riskier things than I was willing to do, but he said, no, we haven't done anything yet, but we're looking forward to being able to do it, probably to get together again in the fall. And that just gave me a little bit of a boost, because this is something that I really enjoy doing. And so knowing that that's not gone forever, it's just gone for this season, but I can look forward to it, is going to make it that much more fun when I get there. I think just this keeping this optimistic approach of that things will be better soon, because they should be. The data that we've got is that the numbers, you seem to get this final spike. Hopefully this is the final spike, and then we'll be able to improve as the vaccinations get out there. But having that sense of optimism, as well as the sense of gratitude for the things that we have, thinking about gratitude is always a good strategy to help maintain good mental health. For our kids, making sure that we talk about what September is likely to look like, and I think this includes a conversation with the schools too, around how will it be different in September. We don't know exactly how it will be, but we're hopeful that there'll be a bit more freedom in terms of what recess looks like, being able to do more opportunities with a bigger group of peers. And this is in particular, I think, of a concern for our kids that have gone online for all of this year, because a pretty reasonable number of our families have chosen that for lots of good reasons, and I totally get that. Uh, but when they go back in September, that's going to be a bit of an anxiety provoking thing because it's going to be new. So it's something that they might have some fears around that. And so ways that you can help them with that, make sure that talk with their school about how to help set them up for success, because there's going to be a lot of kids that are in the same sort of boat of, wow, I haven't set foot in the school building for 15 months. And, there's a lot of people here.
Right. I love that. I love your focus on hope for the future, and to set goals and be grateful, show gratitude, and for what we have right now. And how do we set up our kids to maintain good mental health in the coming months?
Yeah, and these strategies around being aware of anxiety, and for at least my generation, I didn't get any practice with this in growing up at all. I think Charlotte, you're younger than I am, so you might have gotten a little more than I did, but we didn't. This was never discussed in my house, and it certainly wasn't discussed in my schools around how we manage mental health. And so, for a lot of parents, we don't have that language naturally to be able to do that. And so, it's okay, I think, to share with your kids when you've got some anxiety, and it depends on the situation. You don't need to disclose everything to them, but if you can do this in a way that helps them to be able to problem solve, that gives them some good modeling around ways to manage it, I think that's an important thing. Things like just when you think about the fun things that are coming up, if you can even put them on a schedule, put them on the calendar somewhere, this makes it a bit more real. Once I write something down, it's like then it's going to happen. And so we're letting our kids know that we're in a season right now, but this is not forever. This is not where we're gonna wind up. We also want to make sure that there are opportunities to do little things that are challenging each day. That when we are trying to avoid anxiety, we can kind of paint ourselves into a corner and not do anything that pushes us out of our comfort zone at all. So a lot of our kids will spend a lot of time playing video games. Video games that's not necessarily a bad thing, but when you're not doing anything that challenges yourself or challenges or develops your social skills, where you're having to interact with people in a different way, I feel like we can lose out on those skills. So making sure that you're providing little chances for kids to get nudged out of their comfort zone is a really important thing, because when they go back to school, they'll be nudged a bit further out of that comfort zone. But that's all right. We like our kids to not experience any hardship at all. But when we do that, then we don't give them the chance to learn and develop those resiliency skills that they're going to need as adults in the real world. So I think there's a lot of ways that we can work on this as families, and make sure again that you're in conversation with your school when you got specific concerns about your kiddo. That there are ways that you can address that come September.
Yeah, I love all those ideas and tips. Talking about things that are hard, and maybe even being explicit about when it was hard and what strategies were used.
Yeah, yeah.
Through. I really like that. Thank you, Shawn.
Yeah, yeah. Well, thanks, Charlotte, for coming on for this, and I hope this is something that's helpful for families.
Thanks.
Thanks.